Well, welcome to Exodus week 5. We are finishing up the book of Exodus this week, so it's a few extra chapters, not just 7, but chapters 29 through 40. And it's a lot of regulations that Moses got while he was up on the mountain with God at Mount Sinai, and the people of Israel were down below. And as you read these instructions, many of them are not going to make a lot of sense to you. They're going to seem really weird and ritualistic and all of that. But remember that a lot of it has to do with the sacrifice of animals, the blood, all of those things. And that all points to Jesus. Just remember that it all points to Jesus. There's the consecration of the priests where they put blood on their right ear, their right thumb, their right big toe. They sprinkle their clothes, and that's all to make them clean, to be able to go into the Holy of Holies, to the place where God is in the tabernacle. But again, it's all this sprinkling of blood. It's this idea that the sacrifice and the blood is what makes you clean and able to go in. There's also going to be the laying on of hands on animals that are going to be sacrificed. And that's also the transfer of sin from the people of Israel to this animal that then sacrifices or takes its place, the people's place in God's judgment. And so that, again, all of that, the sprinkling of blood, all of that points, the laying on hands of animals, all of that points to Jesus, who is the sacrifice once and for all. Moses is up on top of the mountain, and he senses the struggle, how hard it's going to be to move this people, to get this people to move from what they've known in Egypt, the gods they saw in Egypt, to this relationship with this God. And so he confronts God, really. He says, God, look, if you're not going to go with us, don't send us out from here. And God says, I promise that I'll go with you. And then Moses asks him something very, very important. He says, show me your glory. Show me who you are. Show me your power, your glory, your beauty. Show me that I can believe you. And so God hides Moses and shows him just a very little bit of his glory. And that's enough. Moses now says, okay, let's go. I believe you. I trust you. Let's do it. And so this last part of the book of Exodus is going to be some of these rules and restrictions and rituals, the building of the tabernacle, all of those things are in there. But the chapter, the book ends in chapter 40 with an amazing section where the glory of the Lord is always with the people. It filled the tabernacle, which is sort of this tent of meeting, this place where God promised he would always be. That Moses couldn't go in it because God was in it. And then whenever the cloud that was over the tabernacle lifted, whenever it went up, the people knew it was time to leave, and they followed that cloud until it landed somewhere else. And there was a fire over the pillar at night, so the people always knew where God was. Again, remembering that much of this points to Jesus, that Jesus is where we know God always is. He is in the Word, he is in the sacrament, he is in the person of Jesus. And that's where we know God always is. That's where we see God's glory. That's where we see God's beauty. That's where we see God's grace and love and power and faithfulness. We see it all in Jesus. And so just keeping in mind that as you read this, some of it's not going to make sense, but keep in mind that to a people in that day it made some sense, but it also points to us, to the one who was still yet to come, who would be faithful, who would be the sacrifice, who would sprinkle us with his blood, who would do all those things. And so just keep that in mind as you read. Thanks. Have a great week reading the rest of the book of Exodus.